Welcome to the channel Grand Colombia, and you are now in part 3 of the relocating series. My name is Lauren Lau. This is November 2023. In case the information gets old and stale, you'll know. And a quick recap, part 1 was preparing for the move. Part 2 was the actual move. And part 3 is you've moved and here you are, and what's next? So what's next is settling in. First of all, we'll say you're still in your temporary housing and you need an apartment. How do you go about finding an apartment? Internet? Sort of. It's not a big thing here. It can be helpful, maybe point you in a direction, but it's really not the best way. The best way is get out and walk. I have a few people that get hired to go out and beat the bushes in the barrios in the neighborhoods. But if you're going to find an apartment, the first thing you need to know is where is it you want to live. For example, in north of Armenia, there are 4 basic barrios that I highly recommend living at least in your first year. And then there's a couple others that are secondary recommendations. So the key thing is which barrio, and that can depend on a few things. What's your lifestyle? Are you a party animal? Do you want to walk to really nice restaurants for most of your meals? Do you like to shop? What's your price range? What kind of money can you spend every month? And don't overspend. Try to keep it to a minimum. You never know how things are going to go. But, what's your basic price range? What can you afford? And what's your priorities in life? I mean, the barrio will depend on what is important to you. And during this process and every other process, be it getting your visa or finding an apartment or whatever it may be, always employ patience. There are things that you won't understand. There's things that won't go the way you think they should. You might be right, you might be wrong. Doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to need patience. So to find the apartment, you want to choose the barrio that you're most interested in. Don't expect that what you're going to find is going to be exactly what's on your list of priorities. So if you say, well, I prioritize a look into the mountains with a big balcony so I can sit and have coffee every day, and that's like high on my list. Okay, maybe you're going to find that, but maybe I need a really big kitchen. Maybe that won't compare. There are not endless places available. You will find a place, and you're going to have to live there for a year. So what you want to do is your list of priorities that you set for yourself, it's important in an apartment. You want to have some flexibility. You can have some that, it's like those are deal breakers, but others, okay, I can forego this if I get that, because it will be a set of compromises. I'll tell you that right now. The chances of you having a list of 10 priorities and hitting half of them is not that great. So keep that in mind. I can promise you that if you take the process seriously and you understand your priorities clearly, you'll be content with whatever you get. But maybe the next year you'll want to move or keep your eye on something that closer fits what you need. Because keep in mind, getting your first permanent place, you're going to have a bit of a time pressure, which is a big part of this, because you want to get out of that temporary housing. You're burning up money. You pay way more for those things than you will in your actual place. Plus, who wants to live unsettled? I mean, who wants to live out of a hotel or an Airbnb? At some point, you want to be able to put your clothes away and feel good about it. So patience comes into play there too. But it's going to give you a short window that you're going to want to get into. We'll call it a permanent place, even though we're talking about a year. Unless you love it, and then, you can stay longer. So you walk to barrio. Why? Well, because, things aren't all listed on the internet. I don't know, maybe 10% of them are. You'll see signs in the windows. Now, you need to kind of walk around because maybe the place that's available is on the back side of the street that you're walking on. So if the sign's on the window on the other side of the building, you're not going to see it. But if it is a building And there are no actual apartment buildings. So in other words, there's no building here, with one exception, which is for tourists. There's no building here that is owned by a building owner, and he owns all the apartment, and he has a landlord to take care of all the apartments. Every place, everything that we call an apartment is called a condo here, and they'll have an individual owner. So let's say there's apartment 101 that's owned by Fred, and there's apartment 102, and that's owned by Alice. So they're all individual owners. The building itself has nothing to do with whether you're going to pay them rent or whatever. It's all with that owner. Or with an agent, if you deal with an agent. Not recommended. I've talked about this a lot in the past. So whoever owns that apartment might be on the back side of the building. They put a sign up. You're not seeing it from where you're walking. But when we're talking about these buildings, they all have security. So go in, talk to the person at the desk. They call them porteria. They're basically the doorman. Ask him, are there any openings in this building? He'll probably know. He may not, but he'll probably know. So get that information, then walk down the street and look for another. A lot of people that come here think, well, let me get a hold of somebody and set up on Wednesday and Thursday. I want to see 6 apartments Wednesday and Thursday. So give me a call when you arrange it. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did. And I've been here long enough to know it's herding cats. It's just not going to work. I think the most I've seen is somebody did manage within a couple days get to see 3 apartments, but that's almost unheard of. You have so many people that take forever to return calls, 2 or 3 days. It's really difficult to get them to make an appointment. And even when they make an appointment, they might not show up for an hour or 2 past the appointment. It can be pretty frustrating. So getting those all lined up is difficult. It's kind of a one at a time deal. Let me take a look at this. If you want to know what the apartments look like, you can see the general type of apartments by going on the internet, seeing what's available, and looking at those. Things aren't done in square feet here. They're done in square meters, like most of the world. And it's an adjustment to understand. Maybe I want 800 square foot. Well, I don't know what that is. But I do know that if I get an apartment that's 70 square meters or larger, it's pretty comfortable. That'll probably be a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom with 2 baths, kitchen, living room. That'll be pretty good. So understanding your square feet. If you see something that's like 30 square feet, it's going to be a 1-bedroom. Everything's going to be really tight. The shower, unless you've weighed 98 pounds, you're going to have a hard time even getting through the shower door. They're small places, and a lot of Airbnbs are like that. They're cheap, they're small. You can look, if you see it advertised and it says 50 square meters, you go to your cell phone and put in the search bar, convert 50 square meters to feet. And then, maybe you'll get an understanding of it. So you walk the street and you take a look at these things and you consider, how far am I from things? Now, the 4 barrios that I recommend are all within walking distance of everything you'll need. Doesn't mean there aren't going to be a lot of other places you want to go. On the other hand, the north part of Armenia is so compact, it's just not that big, that a taxi fee, well, the minimum that you pay, regardless of what's on the meter, it might say 2,500, but you still have to pay the minimum, 5,000 peso. That's bare minimum. Again, keep in mind, this is November 2023. So what's 5,000 pesos? What, $1.25? Something like that. So they're cheap. And when I go in the north, I'm at the actual north border of Armenia. If I go 10 meters north of where I am, I'm no longer in the town of Armenia or city. So I'm at the north part. If I go to the south part of the north of Armenia, the taxi is going to cost me at most maybe $250. So taxis are cheap. And if you go side to side, it's a lot narrower than it is lengthways. So you can go across town in North Armenia for cheaper yet. So taxis are very cheap. There are buses. The buses, taking them in Armenia, it's a little north of Armenia is a little cumbersome. They're good if you're going to go throughout Armenia for some reason. It takes a little bit to learn the buses and the bus routes. So I recommend at first you probably want to lean towards the taxis. So you're walking the barrio, you're checking with the porters, and you're looking to see what's there, what's available, what's the general mood. I do suggest that you go at different times of days if you're zoning in on this. If you find an apartment that you really like, you might want to wait till the next day, come that night, and just see what is it, is there traffic? Is there a lot of noise? What's going on? Noise can be a problem, but in South America, noise is something that's just kind of taken for granted. If you get a place and you're hearing noise, I suggest you just get some earplugs to sleep at night. Turn on a fan for background noise. A lot of places aren't like that. As a matter of fact, I'm in my 4th place, and this is the only one that's had any kind of traffic noise at all. I knew it when I got it. It doesn't really bother me because it's mostly during the day, and at night it gets quiet, and that's when I'm going to sleep. But it's important to know those things. I remember in Ecuador, big problem there, dogs barking and chickens crowing. And it's relentless in some places. And I had a place that was like that. And I remember some old videos. I couldn't sit down and do a video without roosters crowing. And it was so loud, it actually come through the mic, even though the mic is set up so that it doesn't get background noise. Like I'm hearing a lot of traffic, I'll bet you can't hear it. You want to be sure, so maybe take a day to do that. And keep in mind, deposits are actually not a legal thing. Paying 3-4 months rent is ridiculous. Basically what you want to look for, and agents will do that, or so-called gringo real estate guys, they'll screw you bad. Basically what you want to look for is you want to pay for a month's rent up front, and maybe a cleaning deposit that they'll keep, which would amount to maybe 150, 200,000 pesos. A very small amount, and that's legal, and that's all I ever pay is a month's rent ahead and a cleaning fee. I know other people that'll pay 3 months and a month security deposit, or 6 months and a month security deposit. That's a combination of not legal and stupid. And if any of you listening have done that, I don't mean to call you stupid. The idea of doing it is, and generally when people do it, they just didn't know any better. And they assume that because an agent or whoever said, well, that's the way it's done here, they think, well, then that's the way it's done here. I'm here telling you, it's not the way it's done here unless you let somebody get away with it. It's one of the reasons I say steer clear of agents, because agents love to do those things. They love to get a month deposit, because those month deposits, because they're actually not legal, never get returned to you. You'll never see it again. That's something that goes usually right into that agent's pocket. It's windfall profit if they can get it. So beware of that. Okay, so you're on the path to get your apartment. You want to make sure that your visa is in process, that you're going to be picking your schedule up. You should be doing all of that, having it done in your first month or close to it. It's very important to have your cedula. While you can get an apartment on your passport only, it'll be limited even yet on the people that will accept that, because technically you're supposed to have your cedula. I mean, because imagine if you don't actually have your cedula and you take a contract for a month, what's to keep you from renting a place and jumping on an airplane in 2 months and disappearing? It makes sense that they're going to want that. Those basics done. What next? Trying to settle in, make your new life. You need to develop a social circle. This is really important. Myself, I've got somewhere around 30 to 40 local people that I can call on if I need something. or if I just want to visit with somebody, or whatever it may be. You want to be smart about developing your social circle. Well, you're going to make friends and just friends in general. You also want to be more specific. You want to meet a doctor. You know, I have my own personal doctor. That's not by accident. You want to meet somebody maybe who teaches Spanish. Maybe you want to meet somebody who has free time and can go with you to visit places. You want to have friends for, as cold as this sounds, for specific uses. You want to be able to reach out, such and such came. I'm having trouble with this particular document. Maybe they can go with you to the bank and sort out whatever issue that is. It doesn't mean you don't go buy them lunch or something as a thank you, but you need useful people in your life beyond just social people. And that's only going to happen if you intentionally work at it. Constantly think about it. Make a list of things that's important to you and go for it. You know, when I meet with people, I provide them a list to get them started, but they can build it from there. You want to work on your language skills. If you're fluent, that's great. If you're not, you need to work on it. If you don't know any, it's okay. Be patient. Use Google Translate. Find some people pretty quick that you can communicate with and hang out with them as much as possible. Eventually, you're going to want to get there. Don't pressure yourself too much on it, but the sheer art of living will help you improve your language skills. You know, when you go to a restaurant, you look at the menu and it's all in Spanish. You know, you're gonna learn some things that you will carry the next time. A quick tip: when you have Google Translate on your phone, if you press the photo part of that Google Translate, you can hold your phone over Spanish words, and on the screen, they will become English words. You might have to set it up a little bit. But I first used that in Ecuador the first time I went to the supermarket. I didn't know any of these brands. I didn't know what I was buying. You know, I'm looking for, so I would walk down the aisle with my phone, you know, just kind of translating the words on the labels. Work like a charm. Okay. What else we got? You're in your barrio. Let's say you found your apartment and you're in your barrio neighborhood. Walk it frequently, every day if you can. Get to know people. Get to feel the rhythm of what's going on. Get to see the schedule of people coming and going. It's important to know your surroundings, and it's a good way to meet people. Learn to meet your neighbors. There's a good chance if you're coming from North America, you're coming from a place where we don't really meet our neighbors. We go home, we shut the door, we don't even know who the hell they are 5 years later. Kind of change your view on that and know your neighbors. You're here alone or with a partner in a country that you're not familiar with. It's good to have people around you that have kind thoughts of you. And if you isolate yourself, people will notice that and they'll see you in a negative light, because that's not how it's done here. It's almost like you're constantly snubbing people, and you don't want to do that. Have a smile on your face, give them a greeting. Greetings are really important here. They killed me. It used to drive me crazy when you walk down the sidewalk and everybody would walk by you, buenos dias, buenos dias, buenas, buenas, buenas. And it's like, I don't want to do that. Well, I do it. Okay, what else? Most of you that are watching this be in retirement. You need to have a hobby. Don't leave it open-ended. Well, when I get there, I'm just going to kick back and relax, and I'll travel here and there. Discipline yourself a little bit more than that. Aim at something in particular. For me, it's these videos. But you need to do something in particular. You can fall into a rut where you don't even leave your apartment and you just hang out and watch TV because you're living in a beautiful place and you're just chilling. You know, you worked your whole life. It's time to relax. But eventually, you're going to realize that rut is not good for you. Be prepared to have a hobby or develop a hobby. In lieu of that, I don't want a hobby. It's too much like work. And this is a lot of work. So I hear you. Then volunteer. There are things you can volunteer for. That's going to help your language. It's going to help you grow your social circle. Where do you volunteer? Well, one place that's always looking for people like you, that's language schools. They would love to have an English speaking person to volunteer an hour a couple times a week to come in and sit down with their students and let their students, Colombian students, practice their English with you. And you'll meet people that way. And you'll be invited to things because people are very social. And even if you're not very social, and I'm not, but when I'm in those kind of situations, like I was in a language exchange one, and I had some invitation, I took them, not because I wanted to go socialize, but I was building my circle. And it's a very useful way to do it. If you're religious, go to a church, volunteer there. There's a lot of charity work that's done. And so you can become involved in that, or create your own, like Turtle in Bucaramanga. You know, recently he started making sandwiches, and he goes out every day and he hands these sandwiches out to street people. You know, that's a hobby. It's charity. It's volunteer work. You know, I told him you need to do something to fund that because it's going to run you broke at some point. Neither here nor there. It's a smart thing to find things to do. It's an important thing. Okay, here it's been started. We got coffee meetings every Wednesday here in Armenia. If those end, or it's something you're just not aware of, start your own. Be proactive on that. You know, it's like we don't have a lot of foreigners, expats, gringos, whatever you want to say. There's not a lot of us, few handfuls of us, but there's that coffee meeting where you can kind of keep in touch. And why I found it interesting is during those conversations, and they usually last about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. During those conversations, there's always something, somebody's experience, something they ran into that piques my interest because of my videos. I'll come back, I'll look it up. Is that something that should happen, shouldn't happen? You know, I'll learn from it. And people that are new here learn a ton of things. They come with questions, and, you know, they quiz people, and people have different ways that they've conquered that situation. So it can be very useful. Okay, another thing that you want to do is you want to set your budget. Now, when you get here, your initial expenses, you're going to be spending more than you should. You won't know the prices. You're setting yourself up. You're getting some furniture, all these different things, and money's just kind of flying by. You haven't really learned the value of the money yet, which I've mentioned previously, how important it is to understand that. First, you'll throw it away like it's nothing, and then the next thing you know, you're being miserly and you're not paying what you're supposed to pay. You want to set your budget once you get past the initial expenses and try to stay as close to it as possible. It's important because you're living in a place that has a flexibility in the exchange rate, for example. If you're retired, you're on a fixed budget. We're living in a time of inflation. So all those things come into play because you don't ever want to get yourself in a situation where you just extended yourself out beyond what you're really comfortable doing. If it gets to the point where you locked yourself into a situation where you really can't afford to go out much, not great. Set a budget. All right, now we want to look at future considerations, things to consider or plan for. Are you going to get a driver's license? Is it going to be a car or a motorcycle? You know, I have my opinions. Don't get a motorcycle. It's deadly here. If you do, don't drive it in the city. Go out in the country. Seriously is a dangerous mode of transportation. The people that die every week on the road, they're all on motorcycle. But do you want to do those things? Do you need it? Absolutely do not need a car or motorcycle. It's one of the great things about living here. But you may have situations where I need a car at least once in a while because I meet with people, I have to take them places, those kinds of things. But when I had a car every day, I don't now, but when I have a car every day, it sat in my parking space most of the month. Well, you're paying for that. You know, you're paying taxes and license fees and, you know, all the things that come with that. You know, it doesn't make sense for most people to do that, but are you going to do it? And even if you're not going to do it, maybe you want to get your license, your driver's license. You want to think about that, consider that. If you lean in that direction, start gathering information, asking questions. Do you want to eventually buy your own condo apartment, or do you want to get a home, a single family home, or one that's in a gated area. You don't want to do that right away because there's too much you don't know. But after you're here for a while, you can start gathering information so that maybe in a year or so, you're prepared, you thought about it, you make notes about it, and you're prepared to make that decision of whether you want to do it or not. And if you kept a budget, so that maybe you will financially be able to do it. Banking. Do I want to get a bank? People's first inclination, I want to be part of the culture. Let me go get a local bank. And I'm here to tell you that I think, personally, I think it's a big mistake. Keep your Capital One or Schwab account. Use your debit card. Draw your money out every month. Operate on a cash basis. There are cash-based debit cards you can get here that have no accounting that you can use for some situation here where maybe you need a card for something. I can think of a bunch of reasons, but those things are available, but it's basically still a cash economy for the most part. Why not get a bank? Because getting a bank means that all your funds from that point on will be tracked. And I had somebody write and say, you don't want to get a bank, you want the tax, you're trying to cheat the government by avoiding your responsibilities. You want to live there off the back of people and not pay your way. Well, first of all, you're taxed by everything you buy. That's how the system actually functions. Second of all, I'm not in a taxable situation anyway. I know that. I've checked. So I know my situation. I do not have to file for my tax. I owe no tax. Once you have a bank, all of that is tracked, and you get in a situation where whether you owe tax or not, you have to start filing every year. There's also an odd situation that I don't want to go into here because it's not really a tax video, but in general, you have limits on what you can spend over what period of time. And if for some reason you blip over that, even though for the year, what you spent is the correct amount, non-taxable, but you blipped over it, all of a sudden you flipped into a tax zone. And that's taken into account because you work through a bank, where if you work through it as a cash economy, it would never be noticed and it would still go by just what your income is. So jumping ahead before you understand all the nuances can lock you into something that you can't back out of later. I didn't get a bank account until I lived here for 4 years. Because I'm going for my permanent residence, well, it's almost done. Right now, it's in process. Permanent residency and then citizenship, you kind of need a bank account. You can use your bank account from the United States, but they may or may not accept it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So I got a Bank Colombia account solely for that purpose. And I have to be very careful of what I transact through there so I don't blip up and over. And I know two people personally that happened to, that never would have owed taxes, had the same money as the years before when they didn't owe any tax, but all of a sudden for that moment they had to pay a tax. And they went to a tax attorney, and the tax attorney got it cut in half, but it was still like 1 or 2 million pesos. So it's, what is that, $250 to $500 of money they had to pay that they would not legally have had to pay before. I don't have the kind of money to throw away. Until you know the system, talk to an accountant, whatever your situation is, because it varies so much. What applies to one won't apply to another situation. But until you know that, don't jump into it because you can't jump back out. It's too late. You've already done it. You're on record. You want to give that a thought and maybe put a time period, okay, when I'm going to decide to do that. But don't do it until you've seen all the repercussions. Actively work to find out what happens if I get that. How will it happen? How can I avoid any situation? Tax laws are tax laws, and they call it loophole. But what it means is, and this is the same in every country, if you have a situation where if you operate this way, you won't have to pay a tax, but if you operate this way with the same amount of money, now you have to be taxed. A loophole just means a way to legally not have to pay a tax you shouldn't have had to pay to begin with. It's It's just knowing that it's there. I'm not a fan of throwing money away. And again, to that person who keeps saying, I shouldn't be living in Colombia because I pay the value added tax. I pay 19% on everything. I pay 19% on my rent. I pay 19% on most of my groceries. I pay it in the taxes. Everything has it. But the nice part is it's all built in. So when you get a price, it's already in there. So you don't have to think about it. But every time you pull your wallet out, be it cash or credit, doesn't matter, you're paying into the government in tax. I happen to love that situation because I don't have to think about it. I don't have to file on it. I don't have to keep receipts on it. It's just there. It's automatic. The other kind of tax is more of a wealth tax. I highly recommend you do some traveling here in Colombia, but be careful. Know about where you're going. There's places you should not go. Make sure that you have local friends to maybe even accompany you. That's the best idea, so that you're not going in blind, so that you know what to look for. If you see a place, you go there and you say, oh, this is beautiful, but maybe there are 2 or 3 things that you didn't see that are the most important things to see. So it's good to have friends and maybe travel with them. Colombia is also, even Armenia, is good as a travel hub. Maybe you want to go to Argentina. Well, they just announced we're going to have direct flights to Argentina. Maybe you want to go to Europe. Guess what? We're going to have direct flights to Europe, to a couple places in Europe. In your retirement, you want to do some world traveling. And last is a partner, whether it's a good friend that you develop that you just hang out with and spend time with, or whether it's somebody with romantic connections. It wouldn't hurt to consider that. Now, you do want to be aware. It's finding someone in that category. It can be a minefield, and it can be, in particular, a minefield if you're a foreigner. I did a video on dating a long time ago. I think I'll do another one and update it because some things have changed. But it is something that you need to know and you need to be aware of. Having said that, there are some wonderful people here to meet. And if you're any kind of a decent person at all, you can probably find a life partner relatively easily. Something else to consider for the future, possibly. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your life. See you in the next coffee time. Hello, my name is Lauren Lau, and I want to thank you for watching my videos. It's my goal by sharing my life experience that you can make a good decision if you're relocating, because you need true and honest information. And that's what I try to give you. The videos are free. Of course, contributions are always welcome. Costs money to do this. But due to requests a few years ago, I began helping people relocate beyond what the videos are. If you check out my webpage, grandcolumbia.live, you'll see here at the top, it says relocations. You click on that, you'll see various things that I can do. I do Skype calls, one-on-one. We've set up an appointment. It says an hour. Sometimes they go 2 hours, doesn't cost any different. But I also can meet you at the airport, spend the following 3 days giving you an orientation, showing you around the area, and getting you settled in. Of course, I'll give you a list of contacts that will be for movers, real estate people, doctors, things, house cleaners. There will also be names of locals that can meet up with you, give you tours. If you want to go to Salento and have somebody go with you, show you around, see how to operate the taxis and buses, or best place to go shopping, or whatever that is, I can set you up with locals that can help you with that. And they can also help you find apartments. My goal for you is have you up and running within a month. That's getting your cedula, that's getting your apartment moved in, knowing your way around, having contacts, so that you're ready to go. The key is so that you can make good decisions without losing money by making a mistake. Back to the video.
Hello. Bye.